What have you got to lose?
The listening and
Be
viewing
blessed.
audience that will put a biblical perspective on everyday issues. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Mattetts, and it is my job to engage in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, and
Bear with me for a moment, guys. I've got some
conversations that
technical
will
difficulties I'm trying to work out,
your
and
commitment
we will work
and
those
your
out
triumph.
momentarily, and we'll be right
Conversations that
back
will
at
help
you
you
live and
keep
in
the
color. So
faith.
bear with me, okay?
Everyone born of God
Thank you so
overcomes
much.
the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith.
That is the
1
beginning
John
of my
chapter
show.
5, verse 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, everybody. Just stay with me, okay? I got you. We just had some technical difficulties that we were working out. I think we finally got it together, and we will be doing this correctly shortly. Just give me a moment, okay? I want to catch up with myself, and then we will be right on target. Let's see. Yep. Let me come down a little bit, and that's not the one that I'm looking for. So everybody just be careful, just be cool. I'm going to be with you. I'm just trying to figure all this out because it's a little bit confusing right now, but it is there. Yeah, what have you got to lose? I am back with you. I'm right on target, and I'm going to now give you the information that you need for your question that I'm going to ask you tonight so that you can bear with me. And here we go. We're back on track. I thought so. I'm extending an invitation to all of you, particularly those of you. Yeah. Deuteronomy. And now my question for the last time tonight. I need you to respond to it by putting your response in the chat box. We'll bring you into the conversation, especially during the second half of this show. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Okay. So that wasn't exactly what I wanted you to get. So we're going to go back and we're going to go back up a little bit and we're going to, and now my question, let's see. Keep going, sir. Keep going, sir. Keep going, sir. All right. This is what I wanted. This is what you need to hear. And this is where we're going to begin. And now, Matters of Faith family, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to some and to present to others my very special guest this evening, Miss Nello Peary. She is the founder of Fearless Growth LLC, a business that offers personal development through sport and education. Miss Nello is a bright lady devoted to improving global wellness through a systematic approach to life. She is not only an outstanding humanitarian, but she is a former D1 collegiate athlete and professional tennis player who has traveled the world competing in tournaments and learning different cultures. She has become well known for her ability to create a common value amongst diverse communities. Educationally, Ms. Nello received her master's in sports management with a focus in business in 2018, started Fearless Growth LLC in 2019, and the rest you will discover in our conversation tonight. So Matters of Faith family, would you welcome with me this evening my very special guest this evening, this young lady who is making a world of difference in the world in which we live, Miss Nello Peary. All right, so now we're here. I'm going to pop my face on. Nello is going to be a little bit late coming with us, and I'm glad because I had some technical difficulties. I hate to have technical difficulties when I have a guest on. So I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to welcome you all tonight to Matters of Faith, the radio show. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We are going live. We are live on YouTube, as you know. So please, ma'am, please, sir, make it a point to join us on our YouTube channel. That's Matters of Faith on our YouTube channel. We're going to make sure that we likewise share that on our Facebook page, which we're doing right now. So for those of you who are out there who think that you're late, no, you're not late. I'm late. I was the one who was delinquent in my responsibility, but now I'm getting it all together. And so you are with us now completely on both Facebook and you're on with us on our YouTube channel. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for tuning in with us tonight. You know, we've got a topic that I think is one of the more interesting topics, which I think it needs a little elaboration on. But the topic, you've heard it stated, I'm going to say it again, is what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? And I kind of asked the question in a sort of like a rhetorical kind of a way, because I really want you to think about what you can lose if you don't put forth your best effort. That's really what we're talking about tonight. And so the article that I've read already, but I think I want to read it again because I know I had some technical difficulties. And so with that, I think I will do that again. So if you bear with me, let me go ahead and share that with you, and you can listen in as we read. Okay? How's that?
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 and 14 from the New King James Version. Now it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments, which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth. So you shall not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to go after other gods, to serve them. Predictive prophecy is a term used in theological circles that helps us to understand the likelihood of a prophecy happening in our lives. The little-known phrase defines a proverb as an offer, not a promise, that has already been decided. www.thebiblefornormalpeople.com says, a prophecy does not simply seek to predict the future, but to change the present. By that definition, a definitive prophecy seeks to influence behavior in the present to affect the outcome in the future. Such is the case in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 15. Those 14 verses of promise are of the if-then variety. Try, quote, not turning aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to go after other gods to serve them. Verse 18. Remain steadfast, and you will see that predictive prophecy will have as beneficial a blessing in your life as the writers predicts. What have you got to lose? Be blessed.
Okay. You guys know that I pre-recorded that. So that's why you heard my voice and saw me not moving my lips. So I thought I'd take myself off screen so that you would not see me not moving my lips, yet hearing my voice. So that is the article that was written. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? If you learn and you apply those things which were highlighted and outlined in the 14th chapter of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter and the first 14 verses of Deuteronomy, then all of those blessings come. It's not a promise, but it is an indication that present behavior affects future outcomes. And so what I want to do is see if I can get you and everyone else, myself included, to begin to apply those things to our lives that make a great deal of difference. And that's what I want to affect. That's what I want to affect. And so I'm asking you, my brother and my sister, to go back and read this entire chapter, the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. If you've never read it, I guarantee you it will open your eyes to things that you've never saw before. How 14 verses can outweigh 58 curses, 14 verses 54, that will change your life forever. Change your life forever. I didn't read them all because of the fact that if I had put them all in my article, that would have been the entire article. But allow me, if you will, I want to share with you parts of that scripture. And in fact, even in my sermon, because we read it during the course of the service. So I did not read it all there either. But what I want to do is I want to share with you what those scriptures actually say so that you are aware of the blessing. So as I wait and as we are preparing for our guests to come, I'm going to share with you what these scriptures actually say so that you would have an understanding of why I am so adamant about making sure that you read this 28th chapter. And I want to read the first 14. Hear me now. Listen carefully. I want you to hear this. No, I'm not, this is not pre-recorded. This is me reading for real. So it's not pre-recorded. This is all live in living color, okay? So here we go. Now, it came to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments, which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city. Blessed shall you be in the country. Blessed shall you be the fruit of your body, the produce of your ground, and the increase of your herds, the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flocks. Blessed shall you be, or shall be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before your face. They shall come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. The Lord will command the blessings on you in your storehouses and in all to which you set your hand, and he will bless you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. The Lord will establish you as a holy people to himself, just as he has sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. Then all peoples of the earth will see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of you. And the Lord will grant you plenty of goods in the fruit of your body, in the increase of your livestock, and in the produce of your ground, in the land in which the Lord swore to your fathers to give you. The Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give you the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only and not beneath, if you heed the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you today, and we are careful to obey them. And here's verse 14. And so shall you turn not aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to go after other gods, to serve them. So I really wanted you to hear that, because I really want to encourage you to go to the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy and read it all. You heard those blessings. Read what will happen if you do not apply them. Remember, predictive prophecy. Not a promise, but it does give us a clear indication of future results for present activity. Future results for present activity. I want you to read it very carefully. Okay? Now, I'm still waiting for my guest to come on. No, she actually has a child. He's about 1 year and 2 months old. And I know that her babysitter, who she thought was going to be her mom, was not able to be there tonight. So she's challenged. So she may be a little later than we anticipate, but that's okay. When she comes, she will have child in hand, but that's okay because if there's no children, there's no growth. So I don't mind the children. I don't mind the crying. I don't mind anything that he might put up. His name is Yasu. So I don't care what Yasu puts up. I don't care what he does. As long as she's here, we'll get what she has to offer. And she really does have a lot to offer. And I do want you to understand that she's been gifted in a very mighty way. And she founded an organization, Fearless Growth LLC. And it's a business that offers personal development through sport and education. Miss Nello, I like Miss Nello, is a bright lady who's devoted to improving global wellness through a systematic approach to life. She's an outstanding humanitarian. She's also a former D1 collegiate athlete and professional tennis player. She's got a story. She's got a story. She has become well known for her ability to create common value amongst diverse communities. She is, by the way, a product. She was born in Zambia, in the motherland. So I'm excited about her being here. I'm looking forward to her coming on. And I'm just trying to buy a little time for us so that when she gets here, we will be able to discuss and openly have a conversation about the application of these things that bless you versus the non-application of those things that bless us. You know, my question, what have you got to lose? I mean, if you don't do it, what have you got to lose if you do? What have you got to lose? So let me share some things with you. I'm gonna share some information with you from my sermon on yesterday. At least that way you can get a feel for what happened in my service on yesterday, because I talked about a number of different things. And one of the things that I talked about is the book of Deuteronomy itself. The book of Deuteronomy, as you know, was written by Moses. Moses, who really was a patriarch of our faith. And in the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy, we find a prophetic chapter. Now, let me make this clear. Say it again. Prophecies are not promises, but the predictability of those words of wisdom, when applied, can have the same beneficial outcome in our lives, modern day lives today, as they had in the lives of the nation of Israel in the times of the prophecy when they were about ready to enter into the promised land. Now, the book of Deuteronomy really means the second hearing. So it's the second time that Moses is giving them the iteration of the 10 Commandments and the law and all the other things to go along with it to help them to prepare for what was to come. They were making and being prepared to go into the promised land, to possess the promised land. But there are some things that they had to do in order to further the relationship with the Lord so that they would be able to function properly. And so he gives them this reiteration of what was already shared with them. And so these words of wisdom, these words of prophecy are based upon their doing some things, the if-then scenario, as I like to say. If you do this, then you shall get this. If you do this, then you shall get that. Sometimes, like I showed in an article, the writer uses the word that as opposed to than, but it's the same thing. To do this, to get that. We can all benefit from the wisdom of predictive prophecy if we're wise enough to apply them in our everyday lives. And just to be clear, chapter 28 contains 14 verses of blessings. 14. The remaining 54 verses spell out quite vividly the negative if-then scenario of predictive prophecies if one chooses to ignore and not apply the applications or the instructions found in the first 14 verses. Please, ma'am, please, sir, take the time to really read that chapter. Deuteronomy is like my favorite book in the Bible, because what you find is God just don't play that. You know, You do it this way, you do it my way, because there is no other way. There is no other way. Or I'll let you do what you do. I'll let you stretch it out. I'll give you as much rope as you want. But I guarantee you there is no other way. And I asked a few questions during the course of my sermon. How can we say that we're followers of Christ, yet not love our neighbors? I want you to think about this because I also want you to comment on these things that I'm saying to you. I want you to make some comments because my guest is not here. I don't know what's going on with Yasu, but I want you to engage with me. I normally do that the second part of the show, but hey, today it's you and me. Right now, it's you and me. So let's do it this way. How can we say that we're followers of Christ, followers of God, followers of the way, and not love our neighbor? And what we're seeing in our society today with the split, the divisiveness that we're seeing, it doesn't indicate to me that we're loving our neighbors as we love ourselves. How can we say that we're followers of the way? And I don't care what your faith is. I don't care what your belief system is. You may not be a Christian like I am. But every religion that I know of talks about love of one another. There is no difference in that mandate. How can we call ourselves followers of God, believers of the way, and yet not love our neighbors? Then I asked another question. Why have we, as African Americans and African descendants of the diaspora of Africa, and all of us are from Africa because Africa is the cradle of civilization, so everything came out of Africa. But how can we specifically, as children of God collectively, not become a people that God desires us to be? How come we have not yet become the people God desires us to be? Are we so caught up in ourselves that we can't get by ourselves, we can't get over ourselves, we can't get through ourselves, that our desires are so strong that we cannot follow the directives that God has set before us, saying to us, if you do these things, I will bless you immeasurably. I sometimes don't understand that, even though I'm human and I go through the same thing as you all do. But listen to this. Listen, I want you to hear this, right? Look, listen to these blessings again. If you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments, which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you because you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city. I live in the city. And blessed shall you be in the country. So if you're in the country, blessed in the city, blessed in the country. In other words, you're going to be blessed. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body, the produce of your ground, and the increase of your herds. That is to say, the work that we do, the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flocks. So whatever we do will prosper. We don't have flocks. We don't have herds. We have jobs. We have raises to get. We have service to provide. And our increase is by the Lord. Blessed shall be your basket and your kneading bowl, even when you're doing the work of helping others, needing your basket when you're putting something together to serve others. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. The Lord will cause your enemies who rise against you to be defeated before your face. They shall come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. That's only 7. I'm only on 7. I'm halfway through. Here's number 8. The Lord will establish you as a holy people to himself, just as he has sworn to you, if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God and walk in his ways. Number 10. Then all peoples of the earth shall see that you are called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of you. Here's number 11. And the Lord will grant you plenty of goods in the fruit of your body, in the increase of your livestock, and in the produce of your ground, in the land in which the Lord swore to your fathers to give you. The Lord will open to you his good treasure. He will open to you his good treasure. You hear me? He will open to you the good treasure. He will open the doors of heaven and give you the good treasure. Give you the good treasure. Number 11, number 12, the Lord will open to you his good treasure, the heavens to give you the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. Number 13, and the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. You shall be above only and not be beneath, if you heed the commands of the Lord your God, which I command you today, and you are careful to observe them. And here's number 14. So you shall not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to grab the other gods to serve them. I hope you got that. And guess what? Our special guest is here tonight. Miss Nello Peary, how are you, my dear? There you are.
Good. How are
Hey,
you?
how you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's
I'm
good. I,
enjoying
I
being
already
with
told everybody. I already told everybody that Yesu was taking up your time. So they understand. Don't worry about it. You gotta buy. They understand. They're like, okay, that's mommy. So that's cool. Well,
Actually,
welcome.
I do appreciate that. Actually, I was tending to a client that wanted to know more about my business and wanting to see how they can book a session before I move. As you know, we just sold our house recently here in Yonkers, so I really want to make sure that locals have a chance to experience tennis through my coaching and my services.
Now that's interesting. Now I mentioned to everyone that you are a professional tennis player. Should I say was or is?
I
So
am.
you just mentioned something. So do me a favor. I was going to ask you, as I always do, to tell us something about you that we don't know and we really should know. And you just open up the door to do that. So why don't you tell us about what you do and tell us about this career that you have in tennis and how you happen to have become a professional tennis player. Now, those of us who, we like tennis, like I like, I like tennis, but I only have a clue as to what it takes to become a professional tennis player.
It is a process. And where do I start? I can only start from where I know it's rooted in. And my grandfather pretty much introduced tennis to our family. That's how far I could date it back when he wasn't even using a tennis racket. He pretty much used the resource that he was surrounded by. And at the time, it's a historic uh, cooking stick that you use to cook and uh, make sure you grind something I'm going to show you actually, because I have to make Yesu's dinner. But you use it to grind the cornmeal. And what he used was that at the time. So he would hit the ball back to his opponent with that. And it's funny because rackets are actually much bigger, almost 10 times big.
Right,
At
right,
big
right,
back.
right.
So for him to use that, he must have great eyes. He doesn't wear glasses today, and he's pretty much just seeing the ball, focusing, having it come to him and making sure it connects to that wooden stick. So from there, it was now us using these luxurious rackets, Yonex, Wilson, that have allowed us to play several tournaments around the world and even the US Open, so it's dated back since my grandfather really, but anything in between, it's me growing up in Westchester,
Mm.
actually. And this
Is that where he taught you to do this in Westchester?
no, I started in Zambia.
Okay.
So that's where he pretty much just gave my mother a racket, my uncle. actually, when he was here. Like I said, where do I start? Because it's in the family. So my uncle, when he was here,
Hmm.
he sent a racket and organized practices for me when I was 3 years old. A year later, decided for me to train in Westchester, as I was saying. So a lot of the process, the practices, and the people that I got to play against, to play locally, nationally, and then worldwide, it all started pretty much here in Westchester.
Wow. That's
That's where I
amazing.
started competing.
I've known you for a little while now. We happen to serve in the same Rotary Club. I gave a couple of big plugs for Rotary tonight. I'll do them again. But I've known you, but we've had some peripheral conversations about a number of different things, but I've never really talked about the history that you have of tennis because I mean I'm an avid fan, I'm an admirer, but I this is the first time I've ever heard that. I mean, that story is absolutely amazing that because it goes back to the thoughts for me as an African American, a person of African descent, using whatever you had to do what needed to get done, even if it wasn't what was traditional in our thinking or in the minds of people. We used whatever we had available to us to make sure that we could get done what needed to be done.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like he needed to do. And part of that was the resources around him. Part of that was injustice and thinking that that was only a sport for Caucasians. And
Mm-hmm.
that thinking, you know, is still lingering to
Mm.
that today in 2024. So going back to my business, I am very adamant about sharing a process to self-awareness so that we're not disturbed or distracted by that thinking. I'm only speaking about growth mindsets and how we sustain a future where we understand that we do have ownership for ourselves and we're able to create those resources for ourselves. So I'm very happy to come from a space and be rooted from a space where we, one thing that Arthur Ashe, Arthur Ashe is, I'm sure you're familiar with
Oh,
Arthur Ashe.
absolutely. Oh, who can not be?
So Arthur Ashe has a quote that I'd like to share.
Please.
Yeah, and I want to say it verbatim because I truly believe that this is the mantra that I use so that I can do what I can in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And that's something I think I carry forward in thinking because I think that's what my grandfather did when it comes to the game of tennis. So it all ties back into how I go about my life today.
Well, I tell you, I think that you are an amazing individual because you're able to, and this is a question I want to ask you. How are you able, or what are the transferable skills that you learned um, to play tennis that you gleaned from your grandfather, from your uncle, from your parents, that you're now using in your business to help others to that level of self-awareness that you talked about and creating resources for awareness?
Right. Hmm. Before I answer that amazing question, I like to take a quick break, 5 minutes, and get back to you on that one and give my son a moment because he just fell asleep. So I'll answer
Okay,
that
so what
one.
I'll do is I can do that. What I'll do is I'll go to what I normally do is do it at the top of the hour. I'll reintroduce everything. I'll read the article again and things like that. I'll do that now to give you the time so that when you come back, we could just get started. We can finish out the show that way. We'll improvise. So you go and do what you do, and
Thank you.
I will continue, and I will just do what I normally do at the top of the hour. We're at 8:45, so we're 15 minutes early for that. All right, so go do what you do, mommy.
I
We'll
do
be right here.
appreciate
We'll
it.
be waiting when you get back.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So for those of you who are here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I said. I'm going to disappear. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go to our normally top of the hour time and just do it that way to give Nello an opportunity to take care of her parental responsibilities. How's that? Is that okay? That works for everybody? Good, 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 because it works for me. So we'll make it happen. Let's do it now. Please don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR Company and J. Lauren Russell Consulting, LLC. For all of your church financial consulting needs, we have a website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. Or telephone us at 718-328-8096, 718-328-8096. If you need a church loan, if you need to develop your property, if you want to know how to maintain your church property, if you need to train your trustees, if you need evangelism training, give us a call. We'll help. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book. Through our Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, the book is $23.92. You can send your check or money order to the Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035, and address it to the JLR Company. You can also get it as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Once again, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Check out the Eat Okra app for all Black-owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, that's right. Eat Okra. And then subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We are now broadcasting Matters of Faith on our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share it with a friend. And also, get your subscription to Better Mag magazine today. A 2-year subscription is only $27.50. Go to www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. I'm extending an invitation to all of you, particularly those of you who are in the South Bronx, to attend an information session number 2 to talk about and learn about the Rotary Club. We'd like to establish a South Bronx Rotary Club, but we need you in order to make it work. On Thursday, May 2nd from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Nonviolent Center, 576 East 165th Street in the Bronx, New York. 576 East 165th Street in the Bronx, New York. For more information, you can contact me. You have my contact information. Or go to Rotary 7230's website. That's www.rotary 7230.org. I hope to see you there. Yeah, I'm putting in some plugs for Rotary because on the 29th of June, I invite each and every one of you to join me as I celebrate my last day of being a district governor. Well, the next to the last day, because June 30th is my last day. But we're going to have the district conference, and we're going to have it at Yankee Stadium. We invite you to telephone and tell a friend to join us there. We will have a Paul Harris recognition. You'll find more about that. Individual and club recognitions, you'll learn more about that. The finals of the district speech contest, you will absolutely love that. And we're going to have a memorial recognition of club members who have gone on and are no longer with us. So please, ma'am, please, sir, scan that QR code or register today and join us at the Rotary District 7230 Annual District Conference on June 29th, 2024. And now, the article. For the last time this evening, what have you got to lose? That article can be found in my column, Matters of Faith, at the Bronx Chronicle, www.thebronxchronicle.com, www.thebronxchronicle.com. It can also be found in the Yonkers Insider, www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. That's www.yonkersinsider.blogspot.com. Scroll down in either one of those publications until you find my column, Matters of Faith. There you will find the article, What Have You Got to Lose? My column is also carried in Better Mag magazine, www.abettermag.com. That's www.abettermag.com. The article is also carried in Pamela's Big Heart newsletter. What have you got to lose? Deuteronomy chapter 28 verses 1 and 14 from the New King James Version. Now it shall come to pass, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God, to observe carefully all his commandments, which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth. So you shall not turn aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to go after other gods, to serve them. What have you got to lose? Predictive prophecy is a term used in theological circles that helps us to understand the likelihood of a prophecy happening in our lives. The little-known phrase defines a proverb as an offer, not a promise, that has already been decided. www.thebiblefornormalpeople.com says, a prophecy does not simply seek to predict the future, but to change the present. By that definition, a definitive prophecy seeks to influence behavior in the present to affect the outcome in the future. Such is the case in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 14. Those 14 verses of promise are of the if-then variety. That is, if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God to observe carefully all his commandments which I command you today, that the Lord your God will set you high above all nations of the earth. Verse 1. Instead of the word than, the writer uses the word that. The objective goal is the same, to influence present behavior for future benefit. Prophecies are not promises, but the predictability of those words of wisdom, when applied, can have the same beneficial outcome in the lives of modern-day believers as they had in the lives of the nation of Israel in the times the prophecies were written. We can all benefit from the wisdom of predictive prophecy if we are wise enough to apply it in our everyday lives. Just to be clear, the first 14 verses of chapter 28 tells us how to access blessings, but the remaining 54 verses spell out quite vividly, I might add, the negative if-then scenario if those predictive prophecies are ignored. Take the time to read the entire 68 verses in the chapter, and you will see it for yourself. The first 14 verses can and should be applied not in some, but in every area of life. If the promises found there sound too good to be true, try, quote, not turning aside from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right or the left, to go after other gods to serve them. Verse 14. Remain steadfast, and you will see that predictive prophecy will have a beneficial a blessing in your life as the writers predicts. What have you got to lose? Be blessed. And now my question for the last time tonight. I need you to respond to it by putting your response in the chat box. We'll bring you into the conversation, especially during the second half of this show. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Well, Matters of Faith family, you've already been introduced to her. You already know who she is. She's told you some things about her that are absolutely amazing. But what you see before you is a well-rounded picture of who she really is. She's an influencer. She's a motivator. She's an inspirer. She's someone who promotes and is someone driven with fearless growth. She's an awesome sister. And by the way, the picture that you see there with the young man, Yesu, that's her son. She's not only all of the other things and above, she's also a mom. So would you welcome with me for the second half of Matters of Faith tonight, my guest, my friend, this colleague, and this awesome woman of God, Miss Nello Peary. So she's going to be back, and there she is. I'm going to stop my share. So that's who you are. There you go.
I'm looking at this and I'm just embracing every moment that I've had on this earth. And the people I've been able to experience life with, both the youth and my peers, my generation, and Generation Alpha. That's my son. They're coming, they're growing. So, wow, thank you for putting this together. And of course, my business, Fearless Growth. Thank you for putting this together. It gives
You're
me a
welcome.
moment to reflect and to embrace and to just, lots of joy in my heart for all these beautiful moments I've had. And I look forward to many more beautiful moments. I look forward
Do me
to
a
many
favor.
more
Do
moments
me a
to
favor.
learn.
Do me a favor. See the picture in the lower left-hand corner when you're sitting there and out
Wow, I
in the
cannot.
woods with the youth, with the young people. Would you do me a favor and talk about that? What was that? What was that all about?
So this was in partnership with New York Junior Tennis and Learning and Bronx Latin High School. So these high school students not only leaned into their professional development, which we were able to do mock interviews and set up resumes, but also work on our personal development, where some of them meditated for the first time in their lives and found it so peaceful and so tangible to their everyday lives, and something that alleviated anxiety for many of them, including myself. As I'm teaching, I also get to work on my own personal development. So it's such an alignment that I've created. And I'd love to share that with you in this moment, if you don't mind,
Go,
Reverend Warren.
go for it. Go
If we
for it.
could take a minute, I'll simply guide a 1 minute meditation with you where we can, within this 1 minute, take at least 3 deep breaths. And in these deep breaths, each time affirm who you are, starting with I am, and simply bring yourself to the present, because I know talking about my past has really gotten me to think about my past, but I like to come to the now and do that with you. So what I like to do is get into a good posture for this 1 minute. To close your eyes. You can open them to you.
They're all open, actually.
Okay, we'll take our first deep breath. We'll take our second deep breath. And our final deep breath. Hmm. Okay.
I
Yeah,
needed that. Thank you very much.
yeah.
I'm a meditator, so I appreciate that.
What is meditation like for you?
Meditation for me is an opportunity for me just to allow the thoughts in my mind to just pass through without centering on any of them so that I can just relax and allow the thoughts just to pass through and look at them, just view them as I would a stream, just looking to see what's going through, not focusing on anyone in particular, but just letting them flow.
Mhm.
And then that brings my body in alignment with my thoughts and in alignment with my spirit. And so it gives me an opportunity to realign myself physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And I'm relaxed. And then I can think clearly. I can actually think more clearly. I can function much better. And I try to do that every day. Every day.
You
What about
meditate
you? What
every
does it
day?
mean to you?
You meditate every day?
Mhm.
That's lovely. Do you tell your congregation to meditate every day?
I tell them to meditate. I don't tell them to do it every day, but I try to be by example.
Yeah.
So if someone were to watch me and sort of follow me around, they'd see how I do that. And it's interesting because when you do it, I've done it on the show, um, showing how to do it while you're sitting in a chair, sitting in a seat, anywhere. And nobody has to recognize that you're meditating, but you know it. And so it becomes a part of your regular existence.
That's very true. I agree on using meditation as a way to practice having thoughts, but also learning to release them, let them flow. Because
Mhm.
I think that ties into emotional intelligence. And also, it ties into being able to not have everything that is said to you be triggering to you, triggering your emotions or whatever it may be. So I like that practice. And I get what you shared as far as meditation being simply a part of life. And that's the beauty of it. I think what I bring in the programs that I offer is that intentionality, that approach, the intentionality to say, okay, this is the approach we're practicing today, where we work on how we're managing our thoughts and allowing our thoughts to flow, what we're telling ourselves. There's also another approach to just allowing yourself to sit in silence. I recently did a sound bath. I think that was very beautiful, where the instructor would allow us to even sleep. I found sound baths put me in a meditative state where I was able
Hold on,
to.
slow down for a second. What is a sound bath?
Okay, so a sound bath, you see, when I'm in wellness, I get to experience wellness in all its forms. So a sound bath is when a facilitator, instructor uses uh, sound as therapy. So the sounds I used were the bowls. So it looks like a bowl, and then you use whether it's a crystal, metal, uh, it kind of looks like this, where you can hold it nicely in your fingers. See, I'm not a sound bath expert, but I'm just describing what I saw and how the sounds were permeating in my mind, and were able to put my spirit in a meditative state where I was able to write as I was saying. So they would kind of go around creating a sound that was peaceful and also very meditative, as I said. So you'd have to really do your research, but my experience was extraordinary. And I highly recommend it for anyone looking to be in a space where they can drown out the noise of the world and be centered with a sound that allows you to develop a vibration in your body. That's what I felt. So that was good for me. I think it was a great experience. Otherwise, as I said, there's approaches to
Mhm.
meditation.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think everyone should experience the most fundamental approach is to simply sit in silence and take deep breaths.
Well, you have behind you a lovely scene of an ocean. And I would imagine that you have that scene behind you because it brings you to a place of peace. The sound of the waters.
You know, we have senses, and our senses allow us to be creative on what it is we want to see, smell, touch, hear. What's the other sense? Which one did I miss?
See, hear, touch, smell, and taste.
Taste, my favorite. Okay. So we have a choice as to what we want to, how we want to nurture those senses. And I love it.
Hmm. Let me share something with you. I just read this. Is interesting. I want you to hear this. Take my glass so I can see this. All right, here's a story. It says, in a town long ago, a king was riding out from his palace to visit his subjects. Through the window of his ornate carriage, pulled by strong horses, he watched the people scurrying around, talking, buying, selling, and arguing, all going about their business. Then he saw a man dancing in the middle of the road, smiling happily as he whirled around and around. He was dressed in simple clothes and had only a small bowl at his feet to accept handouts from people passing by. The dancer gave no notice as the carriage rumbled past him, and the king soon forgot what he saw. A few days later, the king went out again, and he saw the same dancer dancing happily in the street. The following week, the king told his driver to take the same route on purpose so he could see if the dancer was still there. To the king's surprise, he was. This went on for a month until the king ordered the driver to stop. He stepped from the carriage to address the dancer. You there? Why are you always dancing? Why do you always smile? Because I'm happy, Your Majesty, said the dancer with a smile. Why are you so happy? Do you have any money? Just what I collect in my bowl. Most days, it's enough for a little food. Do you have a home, family? No, Your Majesty. I wander the world on my own. Are you healthy and fit? Is that why you're so full of joy? Yes, but many days I go hungry, and many nights I sleep alone on the cold ground. The king was puzzled. What makes you happy then? I don't understand. The dancer replied, long ago, I learned that the best thing for me now is to accept who I am, where I am, and what is happening with me with gratitude and with a smile. I try to understand what the world is saying to me and which way I should go. This doesn't always make me absolutely happy, but I have a clear horizon opening in front of me, filled with the sunny light of awareness. How you like that?
I think that's a beautiful story.
I think so too. Because what it really talks about is how do you take what you have, and you said it when you quoted Arthur Ashe, um, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So whatever you have, it's enough for you right now because it's what you have. If you appreciate it, then it becomes a blessing. If it's a blessing, then not only is it for your benefit, but it can be shared. And if I use that story as the illustration, this man had nothing physically to give. He had no money, he had no home, he had no family. He didn't know whether or not he had good health or not, but he could dance. And he was happy in the dance. So much so that a month later, not the same day, not a week later, but a month passed that it impacted the king. Now, the end of the story, we don't know, but we do know that it had a direct impact on the king. And he, out of curiosity, wanted to know more. But that's what happens when you kind of give your best and you learn how to receive the blessings that the Lord has bestowed upon you with gratitude.
Yeah.
So what have you got to lose? If you use what you have and you enjoy doing it, it doesn't matter what you have. What matters is what you do with the thing that you have. And that's kind of like what this article for me was about when I wrote it. And I wrote it with you in mind, actually, because when I was writing, I was thinking about you being my guest tonight. And I was thinking about, not knowing everything about you, but knowing some things about you, knowing that you have a business that you established, knowing that you have a heart and a desire to serve humanity, to help raise the consciousness and the conscious levels of people, particularly young people, to bring them up to a higher level. And you do it in a way that touches lives in many different ways, many different ways. And I know that as an entrepreneur, that sometimes we're challenged with that because it's easier sometimes to go out and just get a job as opposed to making things happen for the benefit of others. But you didn't opt, and you have not opted to do that. So my question, what do you have to lose, was actually for you.
There's so much in the power of words. And going back to the story, I did think it was a beautiful story, and I still do. And there is a moral to the story. Money doesn't make you happy. Otherwise, I think the king would have asked a different question. So I think the series of questions that the king was asking was his pursuit for happiness, I think, because he is confused as to why another person is happy because he doesn't have the things that he has, or the riches, the material things that he has. So he's questioning his happiness because of someone else's joy. And for me, I look deeper into that and think, if a king was asking me that, I would ask him why he isn't happy. I would ask him, does money make you happy? I would ask him, he's asking these questions about how the man looks, and I would say, well, what do you think? What do you think? And I think that's kind of how I'd go into that dialogue, though. Beautiful story. I'm looking deeper into how stories are shared with young people, especially, because it starts to get confusing a little bit when a king leadership is asking such a question as if he doesn't really understand the deeply rooted cause of that emotion, happiness, joy. So it's something I think I would look into a little deeper as far as storytelling to young people, and rephrase that story a little bit so that there's a better understanding as to who really is seeking help here and who really is seeking a true fundamental answer to what happiness is and what joy is and what God is and who God is and the working of God. And yeah, I think that touches on the conversation on leadership, what happiness is. But to your point, what do I have to lose? Another title I think I would rephrase, because it goes into the thinking of what I lack. So I'd like to kind of rephrase that with you a little bit. Why that question? What is it that you think that question can do for my thinking?
Well, that depends upon your thinking. I don't ask questions to get a definitive answer. I ask questions to elicit other questions. So for me, questions are the catalyst, dig deeper. I don't ask a question seeking the answer, because when you get the answer to the question that you've asked, then what? So I like questions because questions make you dig deeper. They make you look like you did when you heard the story, right? Do you have any money? And you say, well, I'll ask different questions. Well, I look at it like this. I think that the questions were good, and that they had the answer to kind of look at for himself what really does make me happy. And at the same time, while the king was asking the questions, he had to ponder them for himself as well. What's making me happy? Or am I happy? What is happy? I mean, how could this man be and so joyous? And I'm a king. I have all of these material things, but I'm watching this man day after week, and after a month, I'm seeing him still having being happy, and I can't understand why. Because as you said, he was using and looking at his creature comforts and the things that he acquired, those material things, as his reason for being happy. And I think that the dancer showed him that there's a whole nother side to happiness that you've not examined. So when I asked the question, what have you got to lose? I really asked it on two sides, because if you look at the scripture that I used to write the article, the 14 verses in the first part of Deuteronomy chapter 28 are where the blessings lie. But all the rest of them, the other 54, are curses that occur if you are not applying those principles in your life. The if then kind of a thing. If you do this, then you shall get that. If you do this, there are consequences. And so the question is so that we can look at both sides of the coin, not just the side of the blessings, but on the side of the other side as well. So
Sure.
they're challenging. I always want to ask a question that challenges, and I've asked the audience, our viewing audience, to answer those questions as well. I'm hoping that they begin to do that, because that's how I engage them in our conversation, by their responses to the question. I hope you guys are getting busy with that, and I'll put it in here because you already know that question, because it's the title of the article.
It's very, very good that we get to not only think about the good in our lives and the beauty that we have been promised, but also I recognize being a parent, sometimes you have to describe the horrors
Mm,
of life so that the child doesn't turn that way.
mm,
Don't cross the road without looking, because you can get hit with a car if you aren't looking. There's accidents that happen on the road because people aren't paying attention.
mm,
Die from car accidents. So that somehow, for some reason, it awakens us as humans to say, I want to look right. I want to look right, pay attention, focus, make sure that I am looking and directing my focus on God, and recentering. Recentering. And I think that's what prayer does for me. That's what meditation does for me. And that's what conversations with people like yourself does for me. People like my mother, my grandfather, my wise people in my life, my brothers. I'm so grateful, But most importantly, going back to this story of the king and the dancer, how I tell it, the new version that we could share with the youngins growing up today is the king watched the dancer looked into his journal and wrote, "What makes me happy?" And smiled at the dancer as a mirror of encouragement to continue having that joyous spirit. And, take it from there. So I think the need for humanity to look within is very, very important today so that we can be clear and self-aware as to what makes me happy, but also what makes me upset. What makes me sad? What makes me scared? And then that begins your self-awareness journey. And that can give you clarity as to why that man was happy just by dancing without really having the riches of the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're taking the time. The article kind of popped out to me. I'm glad that you're sort of, it caught you too, because I think that there's a lot of messaging in there. But I want to go back to the article that I wrote, because the article that I wrote is what everybody else read. And I think that when I look at, what I call, or what is called, predictive prophecy, that talks about current behavior changing future events. Now I want to tie that article into the story that I just read. The prophetic is that there was a conversation that took place between a king and a servant. Normally, you would not have a king talking to a servant. That's just not the way things work. But the king decided that what this man was doing and his disposition was enough for him to step out of character and to talk to this man, find out what's going on. Now, I would say that in a prophetic kind of a way, that if you allow yourself to be content, to have gratitude for what you have, that you will begin to attract to you those things in life that are necessary. So we don't know, as you talked about sharing the story with younger people, since we don't know the end of the story. I remember when I was in college, we were told we had to write an ending to a story. It's a classic story, classic book called "And the Rock Cried Out." I'll never forget it. And I wrote an ending to the story because the story ended without ending. So professors and things like to use that as a way to engage the student body in writing something. I wrote this article, wrote this ending to this story. And I ended it with yet another question. And my teacher said to me, I think I still have that article somewhere around here. The teacher said to me, that would have been a great dime novel. Now, I had no idea what a dime novel was. So she explained to me that it was a novel that was written sort of like in a pamphlet like this, but it was a novel, but it was a little thin one. They called it a dime novel because it cost 10 cents. And she told me that my response or my article would have made a good dime novel, something good to read. And what I'm thinking is that the story that you're looking to tell to your younger people, using the analogy of a king and a peasant, will be great to have them finish the story for themselves. Have them write their own ending. And the question that you could ask, as you already posed, what is happiness? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What makes you deliriously happy? And what makes you depressively sad? To examine yourself to see what it is that floats your boat or sinks your ship. Now, I got to ask you a question because I'm thinking, what did you have to do to take your tennis career from a passion to a career?
Well, before we went on break earlier, you asked
Yeah,
me.
you I had another question out there that you didn't answer, so I'm asking you this one. So I'm trying to back up into it, so you can answer either one of the two. I got two now on the table for you.
Okay, which one would you like for me to answer
Go back
first?
to the go to this one. This one is new, so let's talk about the new one. How did you
Okay.
take your passion to a career?
How did I take my passion into a career? Through a question. Through a question. You know, one thing I really appreciate about what I do as a facilitator and a leader of youth development is I get to ask young people thought-provoking questions that inspire them to grow. Simple as that. And I was asked a question during my graduate program at St. John's University. What problem would you like to solve within the sport industry, the sport business, within education? What is it that you would like to solve? And I had the passion already for wellness. I had the passion for cultural guidance, for shifting the paradigm for thinking. I had the passion for mental skills training. So I put that all together and shared a few problems I noticed within the NCAA, within sport organizations that I noticed were solvable, I'll say. Once we put our heads together as leaders, once we are able to adhere to something fresh, something new, something that is necessary, I'd say, within the sport and education system. So that sparked my career and guided me to make sure that I speak to the right people within sport and education to see that personal development curriculum was being held within organizations, within classrooms, and was being taken seriously. So that becomes a requirement to graduate. So that's how I turned my passions into my career. And what's beautiful about this is you have companies such as the USTA that is changing their mission from let's just get as many rackets on everyone's hand to using sport as a form for wellness. So this mission was changed just about, I think, a year ago. So I like how the world is shifting and using positive things to create more positivity and teach young people how to be more self-reliant within themselves and their wellness journey. Yeah, so I work with the USTA because they're on that same mission and it takes a team. It's all hands on deck within wellness. And I love it.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I have a friend who has been involved in sports education. As a matter of fact, his business is called Youth Education Through Sports. Yes. I don't know if you know Russell. Russell has been doing basketball and other sports activities for probably the last 40 years and does it extremely well. And so he likewise took his passion for basketball, for organized sports, and developed it into a programmatic theme that literally helps young people to reach their goals using sports as a vehicle to educate and to inspire and to direct and to motivate and then to sort of propel them into other areas of life that they can be successful at, even after, if they have a career in sports when that's over, knowing what you can do. So you sound quite a bit like Russell. He's got a great name. Russell is a great name.
What are some topics on his programs? What are some topics that
Oh, I,
he
don't- I don't know. I don't know.
one
Um,
thing I do appreciate is understanding businesses deeper than meets the eye, so that way the message is not just being delivered, but also the service is being captured and there becomes a proof of concept. That's also what I'm working on within my business, where we start to see the difference that it's making within lives, within communities, within them, within ourselves
mhm.
as developers, as program directors. So I love it. I love that Coach Russell
No,
is
no, he's coach. He's been a coach. He's done all of that. He is the executive director and president, CEO of youth education through sports.
I love that he's doing that. That's great.
He's been doing it for a long time. He's prolific at it, and he doesn't waver on it at all. At any given moment, I may be watching a game, a basketball game in particular, because basketball is a sport of choice. And I may be watching a game and I'll look in the crowd and I'll see him sitting there with some famous person that everybody knows. He'll be right in the middle. He's just that kind of a guy. And I've known him for about 40 years, I think. About that
Nice,
long.
nice.
So, and so I say that as a word of encouragement because I do know, because I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, that it can become, um, sometimes even demoralizing because it doesn't kind of take off the way we want it to. But the one thing I've found out over the years, persistency is greater than all of the knowledge in the world. That persistency, being there at the right time, makes all the difference in the world. Staying the course. In fact, I think I said that in this article, steadfastness, remaining steadfast to the cause, doing it and consistently doing it makes a difference. You may not see the results like, the king. It could be a month later, but something about the dance impacted the king. And even though that wasn't his intended, his intended result, it resulted in that, whether it was in the dance is an intention or not. So keep it up because the you know the wingspan, the wingspan of what you do is greater than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe that and I receive that. What I'll do in this moment is just grab my son and give him the dinner that he needs to eat. And I'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Okay, do that. He woke up again, huh? He woke
I'll
up,
start.
now he's ready to eat.
He's ready to eat. He's ready to
So
eat.
go and
Yes.
do that. I'll share with the group. We'll talk about the article and stuff like that, and then you come back and we'll finish off. Finish off.
Sounds great. Thank
We have
you.
about 30 minutes left, so we'll do that and we'll be done.
Sounds
All right.
great.
So good. Yep, not a problem. So guys, I really want you to take a look at this. And I thank you for sharing with me tonight. By the way, if you would be so kind as to respond to the question on the table, what have you got to lose? That would help us a great deal, help me a great deal to um, to augment and to supplement the feeding of Yeshu while we discuss this very, very important topic of as you know, we're talking about um, literally persistency and doing applying those things in your life that as I said in my article, those predictive prophecies so that you can get a predictable future, changing current behavior for future results. I think that's pretty important. I don't know about you. I think it's pretty important. I know how difficult it is sometimes to change direction and to sort of change your mindset because sometimes our culture, sometimes our disposition, It could be our work. It could be relationships, prevents us from engaging in those things that are really significant in our lives, even though we want to. But I'm so glad that Miss Nello, did something tonight that I've done a few times, but I'm always glad to get an opportunity to do it. She asked us to meditate, breathe deeply. When we breathe, we engage the Spirit of living God who breathed into us the breath of life. If you're not in the habit of breathing deeply and meditating daily, in addition to your prayers, remember that Jesus told his disciples, these only through prayer and fasting. Meditation. Very, very important to do that, to meditate, to give yourself an opportunity to connect spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, that great diamond, so that all of you, not some, but all of you are connected. And in order to do that, ask yourself the question, what do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? If you don't do it, what do you have to lose? If you do it, what do you have to lose? That's the question. So you back? You got him in his feeding position?
Yes, I'm nursing. It looks like he, with the son, I noticed that you really just gauge how you are able to tell whether he's looking for a meal or, just wants to quench his thirst. So I really just, go based off of my mother's teaching. I mean, she's raised 4+ children, and so it's looks like and it feels like we came out pretty healthy. So
Are
I
any of your siblings involved also in sports professionally or anything?
yes, of course, of course. So with my
What's that?
son,
Of course, I didn't know that. What do
no,
they
I
do?
say of course because we're very adamant in seeing our history and what we want to carry forward into the future. And sports has been something that, like I said, my grandfather planted in our family, and for sure we're carrying that into a future with my son. But another cultural aspect of what we're carrying in the future is what we eat in Zambia. It's called uwali. So I made
Wally?
that for him. Yes, I made that for him with some chicken soup that I used to dip in and feed him. Uwali is a meal made with cornmeal and cassava for taste. So again, things I just carry forward into my future that have been passed down from generations, from my grandfather, great grandparents, my mother, that I do appreciate.
One of the things I gotta say this, I gotta share this with you, that I don't know if it's envy, but I certainly look with you know, bated breath, and certainly I wish I could do that. I cannot go back in my history beyond in one instance, on my dad's side, great grandparents. That's as far as I can go. Because as most people know, that through going through the American slave system, we were separated and we were disconnected from our past, so much so that we can't trace it. It takes DNA in order to trace back our history, but we don't know the people. We will only know the heritage. We know where we come from initially, but in terms of going back, and it's one of the things I was talking with one of my other colleagues who's from Scotland and Italy, and he can trace his ancestry directly back to like the 1600s, 1400s. I can only go back to the 1800s, which is, like 1899, which is when my grandfather was born.
Yeah. I believe history is important. And I think my question for you is, what about your history would you want to know and carry forward? Because I believe our future is to be prioritized because we're in the present and we're looking in the future, but also learning so much from our history. So what is it that you would want to learn about your history?
I like to know everything. I like to know where my family came from. I like to know on both sides of my family. I know that we have Caucasian in my family. I like to know who they are. I like to know where we came from originally, from Africa, what community we came from. I had a cousin that went to visit Africa, and she visited a village, and they said that she looks like everyone in the village. She looked like everybody. So they welcomed her home. And I thought that was so great. And I would like to do that, but she wasn't able before she passed away to trace her lineage to see whether or not that was absolutely so. But the resemblance was absolutely there. So, but I would like to know it all. I would like to know everything. I have my grandfather on my dad's side. We know absolutely nothing about his family. Nothing. He never talked about his family. We don't even know. Well, let's put it this way. He changed his name. So my name is technically not even Russell. That's what he told everybody it was. But his name is Fox. We know no one in his family because he never talked about his family. We only know where he came from. I tried to do some research, but have not been successful in finding out where he came from or his family, where he came from. I know where it is, but I haven't found anybody from there to research it out. And so, yeah, there's a lot that I want to know
Yeah.
because it's important in that, future generations need to know. But even for me right now, you talked about it. You said with Arthur Ashe, I like the quote. I love the quote. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. So I know where I am. I know who I am. But if I had those roots established, that would give me a greater ability to withstand some of the storms that come up in life, which I hear from you, right? Because when I hear you speak, I hear you talk about the legacy of your grandfather when he used a food spatula to learn to play tennis, and his vision and his acuity of the racket or the spatula
Yeah.
was such that he was good enough not only to play it well, but then to teach it. And then when he was given the right equipment, I look at you and I see someone who has taken the right equipment and taken it to a professional rank, to a professional level. That to me is absolutely phenomenal
Thank
because you've taken what you were given and you then got the stuff that legends are made of, and you became a legend yourself.
I do appreciate what I've been given. I asked my grandfather, what is my inheritance? He paused and said, love.
Mm.
And I carry that. I carry that because I look at all of what that love means, and tennis is definitely one of them. The business acumen is another.
Mm.
And you mentioned transferable skills.
Mm-hmm.
What was the second question? I believe structure and organization. Those are the transferable skills I believe that come from my grandfather. He never bombarded me with all that my culture has to offer, with traditions, but simply leaned into some fundamental traditional things that require us to be structured and be organized within our own households.
Mm.
It's not an easy thing, and I don't think he necessarily was just, lived a perfect life, but through his life, he knew what he needed to share to
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
generation, my cousins, everyone that he came across, youth development, really, I'd say, and make sure that our tradition was carried forward. So some traditions that he really, really wants to see are, the tradition of the approach to marriage.
Mm.
That's a vulnerable thing to speak about for me because I don't think that I don't think that I'd want to go against that. My
Mm.
thinking is so fully invested in seeing what he says as so valuable when it comes to marriage that I don't
Mhm.
waver from that. I think that's what love is. I think that's what clarity is and self-awareness of what I'm rooted in is, but also carrying it with grace.
Mm.
The grace that says, okay, take a deep breath. What can I do today to lean into that truth of how important it is to carry forward an approach to marriage that my grandfather has given me, that approach that's traditional, that is, so I'll tell you what it's called. It's called Chilanga Mulilo.
Shilanga Mugilo.
Chilanga Mulilo is one of the things that I've gotten to experience. And it's when a group of women in the family of the bride get to come together. I mean, this is a crowd of women in your family and maybe some friends come over in one household and make a grand meal. I mean,
Mm.
cooking with love. One thing about my culture is we cook with love. I mean, wash your hands, making sure everything is washed clean. Cooking with love is making sure you are, like the Bible says, treating others the way you'd like to be treated. And when you're serving a meal, it's a meal that's been cooked with love, clean, fresh. So we come together as a group of women to make this beautiful meal, wrap it up beautifully, package it well, maybe even put a gold bow around it, each meal. And this could take an entire day. So we have women camped in guest rooms, even maybe outside, and it's just an experience. And the following day, we wrap all the food up, as I said, and we all carry it in our garments. We carry it on our head. There was a place we had to go that was walking distance, so we carried the food on our heads. In America, this was in Connecticut. So what I love about this is, yes, we can create a home away from our home continent. So we're carrying this food on our head. And as I'm doing this for the first time, a woman that was born in Zambia and was raised essentially most of her life in Westchester, New York, doing this. I'm like, wow, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for having me be rooted in such strong roots where women can come together and cook a delicious meal to deliver it to now the groom's side of the family.
Mm.
So we're delivering this food to the groom's side of the family, humbled and grateful, and to the point where some parents, the mother on the bride's side would come in, maybe even wash the feet of the groom. And there's a celebration. It's a sanctuary. We leave the food and we don't even stay and party.
Mm.
We pretty much just leave the food and say our thank you, show our gratitude and humility and joy for the occasion, and leave. So, that's kind of a beautiful occasion that I'd like to carry forward into upcoming generations, so including myself. So I'm excited for that. And that's what I think I get excited about. And you ask, what do I have to lose? If I fall into societal traps of thinking I have to adhere to certain societal norms based on my environment, I would lose the beautiful experiences that have been shared with me that, for lack of better words, make me happy. They make me happy. They make me feel at home. They make me feel rooted in something that's so strong that women can come together and create something that can serve a whole nother family, that can create unity between two families, that can create a community, and kids watch that. And I think what kids get from that is the beauty of community.
I think that's an awesome thing. Have you ever invited any of the kids that you work with and mentor to go to? I can't pronounce the word. I know you told it to me, but I can't pronounce it. So you want to tell it to me again? I'll copy it.
It's called Chilanga Mulilo. And
Chilanga Mulio. So Chilango Mulio. Chilango Mulio. Chi
Chilanga,
Chilang.
Chilanga,
Chilanga.
Chilanga Mulilo,
Chilanga. The last part?
Chilanga Mulilo.
Chilanga Ulio. You know, it has such a ring. I love that
It's
sound.
all good.
So here's the question. Have you ever brought in anyone from, let's say, that you've been working with in Western culture to experience that with you?
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
So
And
what was their reaction to it when you did that? How did they respond to that?
they embraced it. They embraced it. And like I said, it brought joy into their hearts, and they saw the beauty in community. And I think it evokes a true understanding of self, where we come from. We don't come from a place of bickering and arguing with one another and creating division amongst one another. We don't come from that. We come from unity. We come from embracing each other. We come from structure. We come from an organized space where if there's something that is angering you, you can speak to a sister, speak to a brother, pray about it, and we go back to creating more beautiful and joyous moments together. So they enjoyed it.
So I mean, this sounds biblical to me. Sounds like, in a more intimate way, if your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. For in so doing, you will heap burning coals of fire upon their head, and the Lord will reward you. Sounds like that's ingrained in the culture, and it expands itself and lends itself to first the family, which is nuclear, but then it reaches out to community, and then to society, and then to the world.
Mm.
It sounds like um, those 14 blessings in Deuteronomy 28 says, if you do these things, that you will be blessed going out, you'll be blessed coming in, blessed in the city, blessed in the country. If you literally, now just go back and I'll share something that Jesus said, if you have love one for another, that the central focus of all that you said, all that I've heard, and what I see is LOVE, that when we extend that to each other, first to God, second to our families, third to our community, fourth to our society, fifth to our country, sixth to our world, that we literally can love the hell out of people, can't we?
Absolutely. And before it even becomes our community, I would say ourselves. And
Oh, by the way, we're almost out of time. We got about 5 minutes, and I gotta close out of some words that the Lord gave me. So I want to give you an opportunity to close out and say whatever it is that you have to say, and I'm gonna take the last few minutes to close out the way I have been instructed to by the Lord when He gave me this topic.
absolutely. As I was saying, there's a lot that we can do that can permeate the direction of how we go into our future with our communities and the world. However, I'd like to lean into how we are permeating ourselves, how we are nurturing ourselves. I think it's very, very important to nurture yourself genuinely, to say that I love me and I love how I love. And the way I love is based on how I experience life and show up for myself and others. So I do appreciate being here to share my story, and how I show up for myself is by sharing my services, and how I show up for others is by making sure that I share my story of how my grandfather has given me roots that create a strong foundation that we can all adhere to create structure and spread love.
I thank you so much for sharing that. By the way, when you look back at this, you'll see your picture right now. It looks like you have wings. So I want you to, when you look back at it, you'll see the wings. You'll see your wingspan that I was talking about before. Listen, predictive prophecy is a term used in theological circles that helps us to understand the likelihood of a prophecy happening in our lives. This little known phrase defines a proverb as an offer, not a promise that has already been decided, but it's an offer for that. I looked on the internet and I found www.thebiblefornormalpeople.com. And they said of prophecy, a prophecy does not simply seek to predict the future, but to change the present. I thought that made so much sense. The words we quoted in the article were spoken by Moses to the children of Israel as they made preparations to enter into the promised land. Take note that these were not the same people who came out of Egypt. No, they were the children. Moses was giving them words and instructions to live by so that they would be blessed and not cursed when they entered into the promised land. They were the children. The 28th chapter of Deuteronomy has 68 verses. The first 14 tell of the blessings that they would experience if they remain obedient to God's commandment. The next 54 spell out the curses they would experience if they did not. This is the predictive prophecy that I'm talking about. If they remained faithful, the 14 blessings he promised would overwhelm the 54 verses. And it always amazes me that a little good is enough to negate a whole lot of bad. And you talked about that when you talked about that word that I cannot pronounce, but I know the feeling when you women got together and prepared meal. I think that's great.
When women come together,
yeah, that's what you said. That's
when
amazing.
women come together,
Yeah,
magic,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. The clarity that we found in the book of Deuteronomy of the predictive prophecy of if then is applicable in our lives today. Listen to this. If we decide not to obey the voice and the commandment of God, there are consequences. If we choose to serve our fleshly desires and not the voice of God, there are consequences. If we fail to speak up for righteousness and allow unrighteousness to prevail, there are consequences. If we choose to let the television dictate the morals and values we have for our society, there are consequences. If we allow anyone and everyone to do business in our communities and take all that they make with them when they leave, there are consequences. If we allow ourselves to be priced out of our own neighborhoods because we don't own anything in our neighborhoods, there are consequences. If we choose to serve the God of this world and forsake the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, there are consequences. Whatever someone chooses to do, they must be willing to live with the consequences, whether good or bad. We can all benefit from the wisdom of predictive prophecy if we are wise enough to apply them in our everyday lives. Those first 14 verses of Deuteronomy 28 can and should be applied in not most, not some, but in every area of our lives. Remain steadfast, and you will see that predictive prophecy will have as beneficial a blessing in your life as the writer predicts. What have you got to lose? Predictive prophecy says that you will lose a life of misery and an eternity in hell. Thank you, Miss Nello. Thank you, Miss Nello. I really appreciate you, the founder of Fearless Growth LLC, a humanitarian, motivator, inspirer, mother of Yesu. I know it was challenging tonight with you, with Yeshu being at your side and at your breast, but with resilience and perseverance, we made it through. You have personified all that we talked about just by being here tonight. You have made it through. Thank you, and please plan to come back and join us again. The Matters of Faith family really benefited and were blessed by your presence tonight. I can tell you that. And thank you for uncompromising commitment to humanity and helping them, especially young people, to seek out for themselves the answers to the question, what do you have to lose? Now, don't forget our sponsors and advertisers. The JLR Company, J-Law & R Consulting, LLC, for all your church financial needs. Call 718-328-8096. 718-328-8096. We do have a website, www.jlawandrussellconsulting.com. www.jlawandrussellconsulting.com. It's not about the castle. It's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book, I've talked about it a couple of times tonight. This is the book. It's my book. So you see how thin it is? You can carry it with you. Make sure that you get a copy of this. If you don't have a hard copy, just go to my Cash App. That's $ Matters of Faith. The book is $24.15. That covers shipping and handling. The book is $24.15, which covers shipping and handling. Or you can get it as an ebook. And you get it as an ebook by going to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's 993177. In fact, I'm going to put that in your chat so that you can see it and you can access it at your pleasure. But please, if you don't have the hard copy, make sure that you get the copy that is available to you via just I go there and get the what do you call it? Yeah, the electronic copy. So I'm gonna put it in here. Hold on, I'm gonna put it in here now. So give me 1 minute. /words. Try to cut and paste, it didn't work. /books /view /993177. Okay, good. So now that's in there. You can see it. You can access it yourself. Now, let's go back to what I was talking about. And let's see if we can finish off our conversation tonight with power and with impact. Better Mag Magazine. They now carry my column. Please make sure that you subscribe to their magazine. $27.50 gets you a 2-year subscription to Better Mag Magazine. Please do that. Support those who support us. That's what we do. That's a part of the culture that Ms. Nello was talking about. When we do it together, we grow together, we prosper together. We actually are able to do together what we can't do for ourselves. And so, Better Mag Magazine. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel. That's where we broadcast from every Monday. So please, ma'am, please, sir, subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Telephone, text, email, message, any way you do it. But tell a friend to join us regularly on Monday nights for Matters of Faith, the radio show. We are live on Matters of Faith YouTube channel. We also drop each episode of on our Matters of Faith and J. Law and Russell Facebook groups. So please, ma'am, please, sir, subscribe, like, and share this Matters of Faith YouTube channel, and make sure that you don't miss a single episode of Matters of Faith because you did not subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Now, the Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. If no one has said this to you today, then let me be the first to say that I love you and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So get used to it.